I am not quitting. I'm going to finish this race because it really is. It's like the resemblance of the last year and a half of like, it might be hard. There's going to be low points, but you had better put your head down and keep grinding because you have to get through it.
Welcome to the Trail Chasers podcast. I'm your host, Dean Horwitz, and I'm excited to share this journey with you. Each week, we'll be hitting the trails with some of South Africa's most inspiring trail runners, diving into the topics that matter most and uncovering the secrets of this incredible sport. Lace up your trail shoes and join me on this adventure. New episodes every week. Brittany, welcome to the Trail Chasers. Welcome to Cape Town. Your first time in Cape Town?
Yes.
Amazing. So I really like to, obviously with these interviews, like it's great to get in, elite runners and stuff. But I think with me, I really like people who have kind of like a bit of a story and a bit of like layers to them. So obviously, your performance at Western States in 2019 was unbelievable. So that was definitely a reason. But then, like as you've kind of just said now, with your profession and being a coach, I think it just adds a lot of depth and a lot of interesting things that we can chat about. I know, so welcome. And so I know the last year has been pretty tough. So what I usually start these interviews with is a little bit of a pre-race visualization. But I know you did a comeback race, so maybe we can go there. I don't know how seriously you took it. But
no, I mean, I jumped into the Trans Rockies run that's in Colorado, a 6-day stage race. And it was kind of the peak of, I guess, just hardship and like things turning around in my running. And like the race directors and like the people that run that series are good friends of mine. So I went into that race with like just the mindset of celebration. And I knew some of the women there and it was really awesome where I was just like, okay, I know I'm not going to win. Because like one of my friends and she won Run Rabbit like 2 or 3 weeks after that. So she's a super stout runner. But I feel like it was the 6 days was perfect for me because day one, I think I was in that, like, I don't feel like myself, more on that defeated, why am I racing? Yeah. But then every single day I felt better and better and better. And I found that like spark, that fire again to just like, I came in third woman overall, which was totally fine because the gals ahead of me were really impressive. But I just loved chasing them. Yeah. So like on day 5, I hammered this long downhill section to catch up to them and like finish within a minute of them, which I know they were probably running easier, but I scared them to a point where they had to pick it up so that I wouldn't pass them, where it was just fun to feel that again. Yeah. And so I think just a couple of like big takeaways from that was I do have that fire again. I remember that stage I came into like the friends that have developed over that period of time. And I'm just like, all right, I'm no longer saying I'm a has-been. Like I am fit. Yeah. I'm not the fittest I've ever been, but I am not going to say that I'm a has-been or I'm not fit.
Pre-race, kind of the night before or like the morning of type thing. What are you kind of doing and has it kind of changed, I guess, in the year that you've been away? Have you kind of reflected on it and maybe you changed something, that you've done new in the first race back? Yeah,
I think the big thing that I'm focusing on in this like Britney 2.0, I guess, is like really prior to my hip surgery, I think I had been like having big highs and then big lows just because I hadn't finally figured out like what was actually wrong. I was diagnosed over and over with hamstring tendinopathy, but we missed the whole like my impingement and just the structural changes that needed to happen. So I had all of these lows that I was just beating my head against the wall. And so I think it was, like having disappointment in racing, having a whole bunch of frustrations in training, and then having those little glimmers of good times, but those were seemingly getting fewer and fewer or bigger spaces in between. And so I was burning out with comparison, with frustration, with just being hard on myself. Yeah. And that's been like this time away where I had the hip surgeries and then I broke my ankle, which I'm sure we'll talk about, whereas like that was the lowest of the lows where it's like, I'm just happy to be running and to be healthy. And like right now, like that's my whole mindset of it doesn't matter what the result is. I still want to be competitive, but the biggest thing I'm keeping myself in check on is just be grateful and joyful to like be out here. And that's where Cape Town is so perfect, because it's like, I've never been here. It's gorgeous. The community is amazing. So it's like, just keep that gratitude and like, just see what the adventure of the day gives you.
You mentioned obviously the lows, but going back, of your journey, what are some of the kind of pivotal moments and the highlights, if you're thinking now, just off the top of your head?
Like of my running journey?
Running life.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously just I've been around many races. It's so fun to be traveling internationally again. And I really look back at like prior to the hip surgeries, I was kind of on that Western States UTMB path, which makes sense, like chasing the biggest races in the world. But it kind of drifted me. Like when I first started running for Nike, I did the World Skyrunning Series where I went to Bulgaria, I went to Norway, I went to Italy, like I was traveling all the time. And just seeing new places and running in new areas and having a variety of different challenges within each of those races. So I think that was absolutely a highlight of I had never really traveled internationally out of North America prior to that. And so just being here and like reflecting on those skyrunning days of like the ambiance of at Transvolcania, just the whole community coming together and just like how crazy that environment is. It brings me back to obviously like Western States matches that, UTMB matches that. I hear, Cape Town can match that. So I think those are the main highlights, obviously running well, but I think too, like having friends all over the world and like coming here and like hearing of other athletes that, from Europe that I haven't seen in years. I think those are all like obviously running well, but like the connections that you get through that are pretty amazing.
If you go back to kind of the beginning, what was the spark, or was it just you were running from a child? Yeah,
I mean, I really attribute this to my high school coach because I grew up in a small town in northern Minnesota where it was just woods and not mountains, of course, but like just so much wooded technical terrain that you could get enough vert, but not like out in the West in North America. But we just growing up, like we would do obviously hard workouts, but we would do a lot of like just go. And one of my favorite runs as a kid was a weekend run that we just go deep into the state park and run up this creek. Oh, wow. So like sometimes it was up to your knees. Sometimes we were literally swimming. We were crawling over beaver dams and like just like dinking around, where it really instilled that joy of just being outside and adventuring, which is what has always been what has drawn me to running. Obviously, like running with teammates or with friends and like that social outlet, but it's the social outlet combined with exploring places that not everyone gets to. Yeah. That's always drawn me to it. So it makes sense. Like I played around in the marathon for a little bit, just leisurely, and then found more talent as I got into like the mountainous ultras. And then obviously it's the slippery slope from there where now you just keep going up in distance and like how much vert can you get in a 50K and beyond, of course.
That's amazing. I always find it interesting when it is from like that childhood age and the sort of career path that you've taken in occupational therapy, was that inspired by the running, or has it changed the running? How is that where did that come from, and how did that kind of develop and change through the years? I
think it mostly came just being drawn to like helping others. So I worked in neurological rehab. So I was working with patients that had a stroke. So it's been pretty interesting. I've talked to so many people where it's like my hip surgery was essentially using my brain from my rehab days of helping people after a stroke where, they don't have that motor control. And so I'm trying to get their brain to rewire to elicit, being able to activate muscles and get proper movement patterns, where it's like, that was exactly my hip. I had to relearn full range of motion because I had that limited range of motion with the impingement. And so they fixed all of that. And then I had to relearn how to move utilizing that full range of motion, which would then keep my pelvis in the proper position to actually be able to activate my posterior chain. Yeah. So it's like, I've been told too, it's like I talk like I'm a healthcare professional. Like, so it has shaped it for sure. Yeah. Where one, I have so many friends that are physical therapists, but then throughout my running career and just running life, I've worked with so many good physical therapists that it's combined that with my occupational therapy background and particularly the like understanding of the body in terms of rehabilitating and motor planning and getting proper movement patterns. It's like I obviously didn't specialize in the lower body, but I've picked up enough from the PTs over the years. And it's like all of these aha moments kind of piecing both things together and then kind of coupling with that because it has evolved now that you kind of mentioned that. I see it for sure where it's like now in coaching, it's like I'm not working as an occupational therapist right now, but I feel like coaching is the same thing. It's kind of seeing maybe areas that we need to improve or fix or reprogram, piecing that into running and then looking at the whole person of, does this fit their life? Is this joyful or are they getting into like feeling stressed and things like that? Or are they dealing with an injury and now there's a low and how do we build up and get out of that? Like, it's just, there's so many things from the like biomechanical perspective, the mental health perspective, and then just having like me as the provider that's helping walk them through it. Using that medical background, but using just the caring, the heart, I guess, that drew me to that path anyway. Let's
talk about the elephant in the room, the injury.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where were you before it, and what has the last year been like? And, has the coaching side of it been a kind of a softer kind of landing? If you didn't have that, would it have been way worse?
Yeah, I feel incredibly lucky that coaching was like my saving grace through it all. Because like I had an athlete that wasn't sure if she could finish UTMB and she finished it 2 years ago and she did TDS this last year. Sure. So it's just like helping someone accomplish something that they didn't know that they could do it and like me being a part of that and like feeling that success and that accomplishment through her experience. I, again, just so lucky that lifted me up versus, like having the FOMO or like comparing or whatever. Like it didn't bring out any of that. It was that whole connection with somebody else living like our mutual passion. So that helped me tremendously because it's also like practice what you preach. Like I'm talking about like just whatever mental fortitude and things like that, where it's like, I need to remind myself this because obviously like since the hip surgery, like those were elective surgeries. So I had been like the moment I found out exactly what was wrong and like was finally diagnosed properly, and that I was a surgical candidate, it was like, sign me up. When can you get me in? Because it was like, I had been on that roller coaster for so long that it was like, there's a solution. I will absolutely take it. And I do not regret it one bit. And I was proactive where I did both sides. So I did my left side, which was my more problematic side. And then 7 weeks later, I had my right side done because there's evidence out there that if you have one done, chances are the other one could give you problems later. And it's like at this point in my professional career, I'm not taking the chance that I build back and then do this again in a couple of years. So that it was easier at that point. It was hard, but like easier from a mental perspective of like just being dedicated and putting that like athletic drive into my rehab, even though I could laugh because it's like, I am now literally one of my patients where I'm sitting on the exercise bike and it is for range of motion, not for cardio. So I joked, I'm with like the elderly, people in their button up shirt, like in their shirt tucked into their jeans and they're just pedaling. It's like, good for them. I'm a pro athlete, but so it was humbling, but it was also, it was at least an outlet to like be in the gym. I got in the pool as often as I could. And I like the Stedman Clinic in Vail, Colorado is top notch, where they gave you a very strict protocol. They were following up with me. My PT and locally like had the protocol and was guiding me through it. So the recovery process was long and tedious, more than you think, like, because it's literally relearning. When I got back into running, it was such a conservative re-entry into running because it made sense. It's if I used any old compensatory motor planning that I had used my whole life, I would just set back again and not use my posterior chain and overuse the quads and stretch the hamstring, all of the problems that I had before. Yeah. So it was slow. It was mentally exhausting and very frustrating at times. But I knew that light at the tunnel was getting bigger and bigger and bigger as I got further down. Sure. The hard part was then the unexpected ankle fracture, because that just shattered me, because I was just getting back into like not feeling like myself, but getting into like hard speed workouts, and my body was feeling so good. And then it was just the fluke accident that like set everything. And it was on my left side, so that was my weaker side. So it just threw me for a loop.
What happened there?
It was just kind of like it's frustrating because it was preventable, but just a fluke thing where it's like I was running, it was run scrambling, and a rock just gave way and my foot got caught and it just torqued it. So it's like preventable, but I was doing what I loved, but then it was just like the slap in the face of starting over.
I mean, you chatted a little bit about the mental side of it, but how was that mentally? And particularly in terms of, I mean, I told you before that I was out for like 2 weeks with bronchitis, and I was like, I'm done running. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, for a year, like, what was that kind of mental, what was going on in your head in terms of like, you said the light at the end of the tunnel, but like, mentally, were you like, this could be the end of my career?
Not necessarily that. I think I'm pretty open where it's like, it was the darkest of my life, probably. Maybe not, but probably. Whereas just at that point, it's like the hopelessness kind of just settled in and I just stopped. So it took 2 weeks to properly diagnose. So I was walking on a broken foot for 2 weeks, then finally got it properly diagnosed where it's a fracture, then got in the boot or the cast for 4 weeks, and then a walking boot for 3. And so really I had 6 weeks of non-weight bearing, with the first 2 shouldn't have been weight bearing, where it's like I went a month and I just didn't exercise. I think I sat on the bike twice and tried to pedal with my non-broken leg and was just like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? And so I just didn't do anything. Yeah. So it was probably the first time where it's like that zeal for being a competitive athlete, drive that into my rehab. It's like I used it all up on the hips, and then it was just this unexpected thing that just kind of wiped me out for a while. Once I was in the walking boot, I was that weird girl, like in a walking boot on the stair step or in the walking boot on the elliptical, and like just doing whatever I could. So that came back, but it's like that month of or like 6 weeks really right after was, like not an athlete at all, which was appropriate at that point, because it's like, what can you do? It's find the tools to let the bone heal. I'd never had a fracture before. Which those are not so nice either. And the ankle, getting out of a cast after it's immobilized for that long can have all sorts of problems. And then it's funny that here I am at Cape Town, my like comeback race that I've wanted to do for years. And it's like one of the most technical races where it's like, I'm proud of what my ankle can do right now, but I am absolutely taping it just for added support to be careful, because like the ankle is still obviously more susceptible than it would have been.
So coming to Cape Town, comeback race, and you're going 100K. What's the thinking there? I mean, well, I suppose how has the last kind of, I guess, month or so, when did you kind of start running again?
Ironically, I signed up for this race in that middle of that 6 week period of like being laid up by my ankle fracture. But I have, like, this has been on my radar to do for years. Yeah. Like, I know it's a competitive race. I love the idea of how technical it is. I kind of joke, sorry, American ladies, but I've seen so many women come here and kind of blow up, where it's like, that intrigues me. And like, I want to see what it's like. I want to see if I can bring my technical skill set and have a good day. But who knows? And so it's been on the radar forever. And then it was funny because an athlete of mine who's been a friend for years, she was like, I'm doing Cape Town this year. And I'm like, really? So that was around that February time. And so I was like, I've always wanted to do it. And she's like, you should do it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that, it makes perfect sense to have this be the real celebratory return to racing.
Yeah.
It brings a whole lot of fear of like, am I ready to be in this competitive field? You know, how will I withstand over 100K? But I think it's again, back to that whole, like, just channel that, like, I am so lucky to be here and I actually feel good. Am I as fit as I've ever been? It doesn't feel like it, but I'm doing the best on the mental side to like see what the day brings, because I'm certainly not overtrained and I'm not over-raced. Yeah. So I have a lot of freshness in that regard. And then what I had been doing, like, as I've gotten back, because the primary focus really had just been like, I moved to like the heart of the Canadian Rockies. So I'm right outside of Banff, Canada, in Alberta. So it's like I spent all summer just playing in the mountains with no purpose necessarily, but time on feet, but more so that exploratory adventure side again of like, there are so many awesome places to go. And like Canmore, where I live, has so many amazing women to run with, and men, of course. But like a gal just ran the UTMB race in Mexico, and she just won. My other friend just ran the 100-mile Rio del Lago in California, and she just won. Wow. So like Canmore has so much talent that it's like I'm chasing these women all over the place, and that leads to good training. But all of it was fueled for me by adventure. But then obviously more strategy of, I did this. It's like the epic thing. It's kind of like the, what is it called? All the 12 apostles, the 13 peaks. Yeah. So it's called the Canmore Quad, where it's the 4 prominent peaks kind of surrounding the city. And so it was not fast, but it was the same amount of elevation gain as what the 100K is here, but it was in like a 50K. Yeah. So it was like I spent that whole day and did that and got all of that vert. So it's just the things that were drawing me in as from an adventure standpoint, but it also complemented coming back to this race of vert, technical, steep up, steep down, and then time on feet. Yeah. Obviously got a little bit more specific in the last month, but I think, again, tying that back into like where I was before of like my vision now is like to race because I want to, and to race for fun, and to like keep it a healthy thing for me, where it's like not focusing on I have to be top 3, not, gauging the success on time or place or comparison, but really just going out and like celebrating what my body can do while, pushing it and seeing what it can get back to.
And is there a bit of fear around that, that the race will kind of start and it won't be there, that competitive kind of
100%.
Spirit?
Yeah. I mean, and that's where I've been thinking about this for so long, where it's just, I think it's cool that my friend is here, because I keep thinking like, I am not quitting. I'm going to finish this race, because it really is. It's like the resemblance of the last year and a half of like, it might be hard. There's going to be low points, but you had better put your head down and keep grinding, because you have to get through it. So I don't want to compare it to like the negatives from there, but I think the like whole summary of like, I got through it and here I am as happy as I've ever been, and as joyful as I've ever been with running, where it's like channel that into the race, even though right now it's just like so much fear. Yeah.
What does a kind of typical training block or training, period kind of look like for you, especially now, I guess you haven't really been racing. So, and then how has that kind of gotten sharper as you've kind of gotten closer to UTCT? Yeah,
this is the first time, obviously, I stopped any formal coaching while I had my surgery and all that, because I'm the healthcare professional that is going to do what I want to do and not have someone tell me what to do. But I also, that had kind of been a goal of like rely on myself. And I play around with, do I want formal coaching again? Because obviously I know there's benefits to that. But I do think for me, where it is, I like the whole idea of like, what do I feel like doing today? And I know there's pitfalls to that, but I have like good running groups of like people that have brought me out with speed workouts, a community speed workout group that just brings that joy out, or that desire to go and push with other people. But I don't totally have that by myself at this point, because it is just Not that I'm not pushing because I'm climbing lots of verts. So my focus really has been like big volume because I work, I'm an entrepreneur, so I work my own schedule so I can just go out and have long days when I want to. And so it's been that big volume and lots of vert.
Yeah. When it comes to kind of specific races, how do you, like say UTCT, never been here before, how does that kind of happen in terms of, you figure out like route profiles and then kind of train towards it? How does that kind of training happen?
Yeah, I knew, I've known it's a gnarly course for sure, and then looked at the elevation profile and I'm like, perfect. It's straight up, straight down, there's runnable in between, but barely until the last bit, which I ran yesterday. And so that was kind of the focus was vert, vert, vert. And then, the Canadian Rockies has plenty of technical, not as many stairs as here. But that was kind of the design of my trip also as I got here, 3 weeks early to be able to finish my last like specific training peak week on the course. And I know that like it's winter in Canada right now. So I knew that the heat, like acclimating to the heat was going to be a big factor as well. And then add on humidity where I'm just not used to that, where that's a whole different ballgame too. And so that was kind of the strategy of be able to get here early, finish that specific training block, be on the course. And then I'm sending little messages to my athlete at home where I'm like, get stairs, like high step, just to help pass that on to her. Because it's like, okay, I didn't realize how many stairs there were. But being on the specifics of the technicals, because like you had said, it's a different type of technical than a lot of other places.
And how have the last 3 weeks been?
So I'm just at the start. Like I've been here a week and a half now.
Yes, 3 weeks.
Yeah, so total before the race. Okay. And it's been awesome. Like blending, obviously a big training week last week. And like the cool thing about Cape Town is like I'm getting connected with pockets of community runners here. Like really amazing runners, but everyone has just been so welcoming and joyful where it's like, just feeling the community gets me so excited to be here even more so because it's just like it seems like UTCT would be the like celebration of running for this whole area. Not to mention me and my like tourist mind of like, taking pictures everywhere and like I want to go up this route and like seeing the more technical scramble to the top of Table Mountain, like that's amazing. It also, like I'm gonna go see the penguins today.
Amazing.
So balancing out like. I keep telling my partner, like, I'm starting my taper now. Now we have time to, like, do the real touristy things, but we've got to keep it in check to not be on my feet all the time. But it's been the blend of, like, that celebratory return to racing in the full picture.
Imagine you've had a hectic 2024. You've run a lot of races. You've put in a lot of effort. Now, cast your mind over to the clear waters of Zanzibar. Beyond white sand beaches, a dial sails across the horizon, and there you are, chilling in your hammock with your well-deserved rest for a hard-earned 2024. Want to make that happen? Check out Luggage Warehouse's Black Friday competition. One lucky shopper will win a return ticket to Zanzibar worth 9,000 Rand. Or you can trade it in for 4,500 Rand in cash, which you can use towards your race entries, your nutrition, or your gear for next year's running. Any purchase, big or small, gets you in the draw, and it's easy to enter. Just shop at luggagewarehouse.co.za or in their Cape Town and Joburg stores during Black Friday week. And if you want a bonus entry, sign up for Luggage Warehouse's newsletter and you'll get one when you make your purchase. Head over to luggagewarehouse.co.za/Zanzibar for the details. T's and C's apply. In terms of kind of racing strategy, how has that kind of shifted since, before the surgery? Did you have time to reflect on the kind of your career and what you could have done differently?
I mean, I think this race, because like, what am I lacking right now? Like, I don't feel as fast as I've been in my past. But it's like, okay, being fast in a technical 100K isn't always helpful because it can burn you up pretty fast. So it's like what I've been focusing on. And I think I've been okay at this, but it's always that temptation of I feel so good and I'm just going to go chase right away. Yeah. Where it's like Western States is the long game. Like you start racing at Forest Hill. Like if you don't have legs at that point, you're going to get eaten up. Where it's now finally runnable, that's where you should be chasing. And so it's that whole balancing strategy of like, how soon can you push? Because you don't want to get too far behind, but for me right now, it's like, okay, I probably can't chase if we were going to go out the gate super fast. So it's like, don't do that. And then really just put blinders on and like view this as like a vision quest for myself, which could be like, if you can, now that I've run the last 20 plus K, probably 30K, it's like, if you have legs there, absolutely that you can run and make that really productive to finish strong. So I think that's the whole perspective that I like, going back to that comparison and all of that. It's like, block all of that out and just run your race, which should be conservative for quite a while. Because it's pretty gruesome, like through 50K and more, like even beyond that, like that is just gnarly, tough terrain. So if you spend it all there, you finally get to the runnable sections, you might not be able to run. So I think that's kind of my focus of like, block out whatever else is going on, keep tabs of my mental headspace. Just because I'm behind in the early phase doesn't mean that I'm out, or doesn't mean that the last 30K can't be stronger than the first 30K. So that's the hard part. And
mentally, what is in the same vein, has that kind of changed how you kind of deal with those kind of low moments and what you plan on doing? Yeah, I mean, this is where so my body has come together so much better, but with the ankle fracture, it kind of re-heightened some of the asymmetry between my legs. And so I think I'm still on the tail end of that. And so when I run, there have been runs where it's just like, man, I just don't feel like myself still. And then it goes right into that, like, this has been going on for so long. So it's like that can spiral easily. But I think like I've turned a corner because it's like, okay, my legs are finally feeling more in tune, like together, which is getting my glutes actually doing the job instead of my quads trying to overhelp. So it's like, if I can keep that up where it's like, I know what to do and I'm doing it, that makes me feel a lot better, where if my body is on board, then my mental headspace can stay in that, like have a normal low versus I'm fighting my body like I have been. Like that's the tax that it's like, I've spent all of that mental energy, or I'm still grasping to hold on, but it's just been worn down over the last 2 years. But I'm excited to want to challenge myself in the way of like a new mental low of I'm behind on nutrition, or I've been working my butt off and I feel all this vertical gain, or, like I've been high stepping all day, or, whatever. Like I'm excited to feel that of like, I'm pushing my body like I haven't been able to do for so long. And it's like, that comes with lows, but like celebrate those lows because I can actually get to that low at this point. Like I know I've celebrated any time where I'm like, I'm actually sore. Like this is not like something hurts and it's part of my rehab process. It's I worked my body and I'm sore. Like I celebrate that because it's like, that is a good feeling. That instead of the like, I'm still partially broken, I feel this way too often. Yeah. It's amazing how, we embrace that kind of soreness as a marker, Most people are like, hey, I'm sore. Like, that's not a good thing. Yeah. But, like, I earned that. Take me back to Western States. What went right that it all came together? That was a really special day. Obviously, like I was under the radar at that time, which is a pretty special place to be now that it's like just seeing the last 5 years since then, where it's like you get on the radar and then it's battling pressure and like there's just more weight that comes with that, which can be a good thing, but it can bring that pressure of like, I need to perform or whatever. But that day was really special because I knew what I could do, but I was not, no one had me on their radar. I did get called out by Andy Jones Wilkins, who's a Western States phenom and just known in that community. And he did a podcast and called me out as the dark horse. Oh, wow. Where just like that was just that little glimmer, and we're good friends. It was that little glimmer of like someone else sees that belief. Obviously, my coach really did. I knew what I could do.
But I'd never done it, or like I had done some big training runs on the course, and my last like peak run like was a really good run where it's just like, this was special. There was that passion, that drive. And then just that little call out of like someone out there, you know, that I didn't know at the time, like recognized that, because he followed, like I was posting on the course, and he lives and breathes all of that. So he was like, you're doing all of the right things. And so really that day, one, it was snow in the high country. And so it wasn't like the other 2 years that I've done it, it was 0 snow in the high country. And so you can just hammer, which is fine. But it's like that snow set a gap right away of people that can run through the snow and people that struggled with that. And so I was honestly, I think I was in like between 3rd and 4th the whole day. And then pretty soon it was it was like solidly in 3rd, maybe going back and forth a little bit, but then solidly in 3rd. And then and like feeling really good, executing exactly how I wanted to. Nutrition was spot on. And then that's when got to mile 80 at the river. No, either way. Yeah, mile 80-ish. And that's when Courtney DeWalter had her hip go out. And so that's when I bumped into 2nd. My coach like grabbed me at my face at that point and said like, you're chasing first now. And, you know, and the whole plan was get to the Highway 49 crossing, like where you want to be when you finish. Like, cause generally it's you get to Highway 49 and it stays the same. You're pretty much done at that point. But that's when Claire Gallagher, who won that year, and I literally, like, I had a really awesome section, and I made up like 8 minutes on her, and it was the dark, it was sunset, and like I passed her, and we literally crossed Highway 49 together. So it's just kind of that funny thing, and my coach tells me, get to Highway 49, where you want to be when you're finishing, and we were right there neck and neck. And so I think it's still like incredibly special, because it was like this, for me, it was the days, like I just busted my butt to like catch up to her. And then it was like, I'm here, now what? Like she didn't just get defeated. Like Claire is a fighter, and I love her for that. Where it was like we ran together to Pointed Rocks, and then she just sprung this sneak. I should have been thinking about it, but I was still in that like, what is happening? And so she just dusted me, and it was amazing to see, but it was pretty deflating at that time of like, I think I spent it all. But it was that whole like celebratory of like, get to Roby Point, and I just like soaked it in of like seeing the ambiance and like celebrating that I just got 2nd place at Western States on my first attempt there, my 2nd 100 ever. So it's just really, the whole day fell together pretty well. Like obviously had some lows in there at times, but most of it was like to be able to just stay on that attack mode and like have that fire to chase. But then that whole like just tapered out a little too soon to not be able to pull. But Claire pulled an amazing feat at what she was able to accomplish in that last, like 4 miles.
Exactly. I think it's so interesting. It's, as you said, like you set out to achieve what you wanted to achieve, and you wanted to feel good and feel strong, and that was what you kind of achieved, regardless. It's
like a podium would be great. I have no idea. There's so much talent at Western States every year, and now it's like so much talent everywhere every year. That's just like, you can only control what you can control. I couldn't control that Claire had an amazing kick at the end, but it's like we brought the best out of each other. So it's like I had a hell of a day still, even though she just had that little notch further.
And was there kind of like a pre-Western States and a post-Western States? I mean, like, were you no longer the dark horse now?
No, I wasn't the dark horse. And the nice thing, like I had been around the community enough, like that my competitors, like the key women in the sport at the time, like most of them knew who I was, where it's like I'm not counted for. But I think the greater public and like the media aspect of that time didn't know. And so, that's the whole segue of like no longer the dark horse, and like thriving off of that with celebration, with kind of the hype and whatnot. But it's like, it is that fine line of like pressure to perform. And it was funny, my 3rd time at Western States, I was battling something and ended up, I was sick. But I still started, and I wanted to quit the whole time. But like my crew kept me going, and I finished. But I was 16th, and so it's like having two, like first or second and fourth, and then being 16th, where it's like out of the craziness of it. It was just an interesting. I feel like it was necessary for me, or just gives me that broad perspective of all experiences at Western States. I got to see the beginning of the lights crossing the river, not fully in darkness, but I had never seen the lights before because I had always crossed in the daylight. But just so like seeing kind of, it was an interesting thing of like, there's so much excitement, but there's less excitement when you're not in the hype of winning, but it's like there still is excitement, and there should be excitement because everybody is out here. And the golden hour at Western States is one of the most beautiful things ever.
You know, Western States obviously is pretty special across the world. You know, I think it's bucket list for most people. But what is it like as an American?
I mean, yeah, like I think, because like I had raced in Europe so many times where the hype at every race in Europe is next level. And like when I got my golden ticket, like they didn't even know I was the winner of the 100K when I finished the line. And it was like my coach and my partner at the time, you know, like, hey, like, yay, I'm done. You know, so it's kind of that, you know, like I think that's developing and growing, and a lot of like organizations in the US are trying to facilitate that better. But it's like, it's not the same as Europe, except for Western States. Yeah. You know, so that's where like it was welcome. Because I mean, obviously as a participant or someone, when you're having, like you're depleting yourself, but it's like at the 100K mark at Western States, it's like I felt so uplifted because it is like a half mile of just craziness on that whole street in town. You know, where it's like that makes a big difference of like feeling excited, feeling the love for the sport that Europe really has mastered, or like just has that fan following. Versus the U.S., people are still like, what do you do? So I think it's growing, but it's like, it's cool to have that on home turf. And like, just, I feel like I have a connection to those trails where it really just comes like full circle celebration. And
what was that, compare that to kind of UTMB or Western States and UTMB, you know, in terms of just obviously the feelings around it. In terms of being an American in Europe and, you know, being an American in America.
Yeah, I mean, it feels different for sure, but like UTMB is a party. I think the big difference is like one of my favorite parts is like that end of the first aid station. I forget all the names, but like as you're heading up into the mountains and it is evening, it is night. So it's like these people are doing it right. Like they're having a party. Their night's just starting and like they're having fun. Like it is a rave, you know. So I think that's the different part of, you know, Western States is mostly in the day, and then like when the women are finishing, it's like early evening or something, or you know, like night, but early night. But it's like the crowd isn't the same as when Jim Walmsley is finishing and it's evening. People are going to bed or whatever. It's still a party, but not like UTMB. So I think that like the night start at UTMB and like allowing that party to happen. But then I love the aspect from an American standpoint of like going through 3 different countries and just like I can tell when I've switched countries because the way each culture cheers is a little different. And so I guess it is kind of that foreign experience of new lands, new terrain, new cultures, really celebrating like the whole accomplishment of running around the entire mountain, and bringing 3 countries together. So it's like, that is a unique thing that I just don't think, I think maybe as an American, like I love that part because I'm not in that area all the time. That's not in, you know, I spend 12 hours in the car and I'm still in the US versus like through several different countries.
And if you look at that in terms of the trail culture, community, how has that evolved in America from when you started to now? How do you kind of look at that? I
mean, when I first started ultra running, like 2010, and I think even prior to that, whether it was 2008 or 9, I joined some friends to a random 50-mile race in northern Montana. So backwoods Montana is the LaGriz 50. And I remember we were all mid-early 20s, really maybe late 20s for some of us. And it's like everyone else seemed to be like a 50-plus-year-old male.
Yeah.
You know, where it's just like that beginning, and I know rural could impact that, of course, but like the beginning was like, this is once you're done being fast, you can just run forever and slow. But it's like now, what I just saw at Javelina 100K a couple weekends ago, there was a 13-year-old that finished. Yeah. You know, so it's definitely, and I worry about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's another podcast on its own.
Yeah, exactly. But I think what it's showing is like families are doing it, you know, young people like skipping maybe even university running, going straight to trail running, and potentially having this really amazing career in trail running is a possibility. It's the worry, at least from my perspective, healthcare brain comes out again of like, how long can you run 100 miles if you start at age 20? Are you going to be burnt out by 25? Like, I didn't get sponsored until I was 30. Yeah. You know, so it's just that whole longevity thing of like, we do need to care for our bodies, but there's a lot more opportunity. But it's like there's scary potential consequences too if you're not getting the proper mentoring or coaching or just having that long-term vision for yourself too. I love the people that say, like, there's a very strong runner in Canada that will just go and race like a beast and just put it all out there. And she doesn't care about like, did I win? No, someone passed me at the end because I went out too hard, but that's okay because I'm excited to push myself and I want to be doing this until I'm 90 years old. And it's like, that's exactly after, you know, I had been asked, would I rather win Western States and then never run again or run for the rest of my life? And pre-me, Brittany 1.0 would think about that. Like, oh man, I want to win Western States. But it's like, I just had a year and a half of like battling to run where it's like, I am so happy just running in the mountains and adventuring that it's like, I don't care if I never win Western States. I want to run forever.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Sorry, that was a tangent.
No, that was actually amazing. It's actually a good question. I'm going to include that in my future podcasts. You touched on the sponsorship aspect. So another reason why I want to have you on is obviously you're sponsored by Nike, which is, I don't know if it's in America it's as rare, but obviously here definitely, and I haven't in Europe as well. It's pretty rare. How did that all come about? You know, why Nike? You know, how? Yeah, is it a lot? Are they a lot bigger in the trail scene in America, or was it just kind of you had that special connection?
No, it was kind of random. I do feel like when I first got sponsored by them, I had other mentors that were already sponsored. So it was kind of like poking around and like, what's a good contract or what are the brands that I should be looking for? How do I even go about this? And a friend of mine had said that Nike had been known for kind of like the starter brand. And so I think that has I've been there 7 years now, so it's evolved in the sense of they've had some really good talent over the years, but plenty of people have moved on to other brands. But I think that was prior to my time, where I'm one of the longer standing sponsored runners with Nike the whole time. But I do see like there's some others that are only just a year or so behind me that they've been with Nike too. So I do see Nike evolving in like putting more money towards Nike Trail, fostering having more athletes, though it is US based. But they have, I'm not exactly sure how it works because there is like a Spain based one, but it's not the like Nike Pro. I don't even know how it works, but there are other Nike runners, but we're not joined, which I think is too bad. Why wouldn't we have kind of that international feel? Because then there's another gal from the Netherlands, I believe. It's like crazy talent, and I don't know where she fits in. Yeah. But I would love it if like there is some connection with some of us if we cross paths in racing and whatnot, but it's not facilitated by Nike. So I'm not sure exactly how that works, and I hope that is another evolution. Like with such a big organization, I know it just takes so much time to grow because just throughout my time, I know things have grown significantly as far as getting like my manager there and like media support and other things like physio support. It's just, I think it's just such a big organization that it's hard to get people that actually make the decisions to kind of look at Nike Trail, but it is happening slowly. Where I think like just Nike in a silo, like in the trail running sector, like the people are really awesome. Everyone's super passionate about trail running and about us as people. And it's just trying to build, like, we've been promoting, like, can we please get like a team camp or something? Because we've had amazing athletes on the team and it's really just good people. Why can't we get together? But it's the slow process.
Yeah. No, I think it's the beginning of that whole kind of phase. And what are the kind of pros and cons of being a kind of sponsored athlete?
I feel very lucky that, because this was something that was really important to me, of like, I know so many people get pressured to, you have to race this, you have to race that. I know it can come. Like, I've been really lucky where like haven't been able to race, where I know I could either have my contract pulled or I could be pressured, like, you need to jump into a race. But like, there was no more pressure than pressure I put on myself because I wanted to. So I feel really lucky in that, where I know there's other brands that push people to either determine their schedule or maybe push them to race too often or get back too soon after injury or something. So I feel really lucky about that, because that was something that's like, I wouldn't do that. I couldn't do that because I'd be hurt all the time if I raced too much. So I think, obviously a pro of like just, well, one, like here, I feel like my shoes have already gotten trashed just being here like a week and a half, where it's like having the gear and all that support is really helpful. I mean, the con, I think another big pro, like this was something of just, for me, I'm fairly introverted, but like I have a platform of some sort where it's like being able to influence other women, where it's like, I remember in my early days of kind of getting noticed and then getting sponsored, I won a race outright. And like one of the first people I noticed was this younger gal, like little girl, like standing at the finish line. Like, she was the first one, where it's like, yes, we can do this. Yeah. And like I've had women over time, like, like, I started doing this and I love it. And, like, you've really inspired me to put myself out there and things like that, where it's just like, we can be feminine and fancy and get dressed up really nice, but we can also go play in the dirt. And I've got scars all over my legs and, like, we can be tough as well. Yeah. And I love it, where like I remember running Western States and I'm next to Ruth Croft, or she's gorgeous, but it's like we're all just disgusting, like pouring water on ourselves, like trying to not get sticky with our gels and whatever. Like it's not exactly an attractive sport, no. but it's like, it's just the beautiful thing of like, we can do this too.
What do you feel about your kind of role as I guess like a role model, like you've kind of said, Is there like pressure on that, or do you kind of embrace it?
I embrace it. I mean, I think that's probably the empath heart that I have of like naturally wanting to care for others or help others. And it's like, I'm not good at being fake. So it's like, I'm struggling, or I'm a human and I have depression at times, or, just like sharing that, like that's reality. Like, am I the first person to get injured and out for over a year? No. Like, am I hopefully like not alone and people battling through that? Like, if I can help one person just know that it's like, this is a low and it feels like forever, but it is not going to be forever. And I would tell my patients this, where it's like the only time for sure you're not going to make any more progress is when you stop trying. Yeah. So it's like, it might be little increments. Like, my ankle was 2 steps forward, 1 step back. My hip surgery was that, like, every shift in like my body, like unwinding itself from all of the compensation, I would just be getting like feeling a little bit more fluid, and then I would step back. And it's like that step back was actually, I just hit that next ledge and I had to reset again to then rebuild to the next ledge and then reset. It's like, there's so many things, but it's like staying focused on there will be a positive thing at the end. And so it's like having that platform to share, like, after my ankle fracture, that was probably the worst place I've ever been. And I had a great support system. I sought extra counseling because I was in a low spot, and then I pulled myself up and got there. Yeah. But I did it with my community because I needed all of the help I could get because I was tapped out. Yeah. I think we all go through that. And that's where I love, like, ultra running literally is like life, because there's high moments and there's low moments. And those low moments can be divorce or death or whatever, like real heavy things. It's like running is a parallel, and it can feel similar, even though Like to us, it's like, this is my life. This is my outlet. This is my me time, my escape. And I don't have that right now. Like it can feel just as bad.
I want to talk a bit about that as well, because you're saying, like, I was thinking, obviously I'm not a professional runner, but running, it is very much a profession, that I'm kind of involved in. And at the same time, as you mentioned, running is meant to be that outlet and that kind of space. So how do you kind of balance that, between it being profession and then obviously when it gets taken away, what then is the outlet?
Oh, yeah. that was the hard part because it's like on those days that it was the step back, it's like it was easy to just kind of go into, this is stupid, I hate running. When it's like, no, actually I love running. So that's where it's cool, like being on the other side where it's like, I love running. I love running how I'm doing it right now. And that's where it's so important to me right now of like, don't do this to a point where it becomes your job. I have to go do this. No, I get to go do this. It's such an easy line. And I think that maybe, like, at least from the way my brain is wired, which I know that there are many other people that feel this way or struggle with this, where it's like you get that pressure and then that builds and then it's like you're stuck in that weight and it's, I have to do this. I have to do this because I have to perform. When it's like maybe to the average person, it's like, I get to do this. It's my free time. It's where I'm like with my friends or, if I'm a mom, like I get away from my kids or like I have that me time, alone time, where it's like you get to do this. And I'm sure everyone can feel that, but it's like on that professional side, for some people where it's like, if I don't do well at this race, I don't get a paycheck. So it's like it is that fine line of running should be fun. It should be something we enjoy. And that can complement getting really good at it. But it's like it is that knife edge of, but if it starts like suffocating you because you have to and you're feeling that pressure, then it's like, man, why? But I guess it's a career. Like we all have that in probably any of our careers. But it's just like running should be a beautiful outlet versus... like a source of stress. But it is hard because it's like it was funny, like I've been an occupational therapist for majority of my professional running career, except for like the last 2 years I'm full-time coaching. And it's like when I've been injured, so it's like this whole, like I finally took the leap into true professional running with coaching and now I don't run and I'm probably losing everything, so it's that mind game, but it's all like, control it you can control. And I love coaching and I'm learning all sorts of skill sets of marketing and like just how to go and be an entrepreneur while still getting to share what I love and that will bring in clients that I get to help.
That's incredible. And when people come to you kind of, I guess, for the first time, want to get into trail running, what is the kind of advice or the first thing that you kind of tell them?
I mean, I like just being here. It's funny because I just have these thoughts. I'm like, how could anyone run on the road? It's like, it is so amazing out here. But I think it is that whole, like taking away some of that pressure of like, your paces don't matter, like learn your body and your efforts. But it's like, if you're going up a hill, of course, your heart rate is going to spike. So like, can you look at the whole run in an entirety versus heart rate data every little kilometer or whatever. But then I, like, as a coach, I love the model that we have because there's 2 of us coaches right now. And it's like we have collective data that we've all shared or like knowledge that we've shared and put into little notes. So like on a day off, I give them like day off and here's some like mobility or recovery recommendation or training. And then here's a note. And I've talked to like a lot of my athletes, especially those people that are either new to running or getting back or upping distance or transitioning to trails, where it's so many people that they're like, I never thought of that, or I never knew of that. Or, like I think of myself as the road runner segueing into the trails, like you get to walk on an uphill and like, that's not like shameful, so I think it's like, it's cool for me to kind of go back to like, what are the things that I didn't know and how can I bridge that gap and help someone? Because I've gotten feedback, which was really helpful for me of like, okay, this little thing of just putting, hey, trekking poles are out there and that could help on your uphill. Like some people have no idea or they've never tried it. Like I have an athlete that is like a CEO executive in New York City and he did his first trail run and it was a stage race. And so there was a bunch of learning curves that it was really fun to just like see him feel so much empowerment from like going out and doing something that was so out of his norm.
We chatted, you mentioned kind of Brittany 2.0. So what does that kind of look like? What's, is there a plan? Or is it kind of let's get through UTCT and then we'll, I suppose short term, next year, long term?
I don't want to ever lose focus of the long-term plan, which I'm already like, okay, I've been wanting to go to Thailand, so it's like next year I'm going to Thailand, and doing that, whatever, like the Doi Thailand, like 100-mile race.
Yes.
So it's just like these races that have been on my radar, but I just haven't been able to prioritize because I was stuck on that UTMB Western States, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. So it's like having those adventures of like see a different part of the world, go do this gnarly course that I've been wanting to explore a new culture and community. That's the long-term goal that I'm not going to lose sight of. But I think it's see how UTCT goes to explore, would I want to chase a golden ticket? When will I go back to UTMB so I can actually finish it? Yeah. So I know I want to do that, but it's like I'm holding off on like those lofty goals until I really like know that I'm back to fitness of Brittany 1.0 and I'm healthy in headspace of Brittany 2.0.
You finish UTCT, what does kind of success look like in your mind?
Crossing that finish line and being happy. I mean, I'm what my mindset at this point is, it could be awful or it could be like a really huge surprise and like something where that fire is back and I am chasing. So I'm hopeful for that, but it's like I want to be realistic. So like if it is, the wheels fall off or I'm destroyed halfway through because I haven't run 100K for that long, like a long time, I want to be realistic so I'm not just totally derailed and crying and quitting on the side of the trail. But I don't want to like have that self-fulfilling prophecy of like making my race day only ending in catastrophe.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of possibility of it could just be an amazing day. This is a course that I feel like I would be physically, like my body, like that was a takeaway from Trans Rockies, was like my body remembers how to do this. Yeah. So it's like, don't let my head screw up what my body certainly can do. And so it's being realistic on both sides. It's finding gratitude in both sides, whatever is going to happen. But it's like, it's keeping that control over the mental in the beginning of let it go, just focus on you, and then trying to find that like desire to feel the burn and push through whatever comes in the second half.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
That's
this is incredible.
Yeah.
And I can't wait. I mean, definitely be there on the weekend after my race, and very excited to see you race and also see you come across that finish line.
That's right. Thank you. And good luck to you on your race.
Thank you. Thank you. Amazing.
Feeling fired up after this incredible episode? Dive deeper into the world of trail running by exploring our other episodes, available wherever you get your podcasts. We're eagerly awaiting your feedback as well, so connect with us on Instagram @TrailChasersPod. Don't hold back. Like, comment, message, and share your thoughts. Until next week, keep chasing those trails.